Welcome to Rauta and a death metal review. Sometimes good things come by surprise, and that's really the case with the band of today, Vomitory. Now, a lot of you, I guess, considered that this band was never going to come back with a strong album after they split up in the early 2000s, that is around 2013, but they made a comeback, and now we have All Heads Are Gonna Roll. And what a violent piece of death metal this one is. Now, I got the pleasure to see the band last year in Norway, and they were fierce and violent live as well. So all the directions, all the fingers were pointing like, okay, this is going to sound violent whenever they made a new album, and here it is. And I'm gonna say it's one of the best albums so far for 2023. I would be really surprised if this was indeed in my top 10 when the year is finally done and all. But we're still just like 5 months in, barely, so who knows what kind of surprises is. But I would be really surprised if there was a better death metal album than this by the end of the year. Not many it seems, but however there's one challenger with Obituary's latest album. So far I could say Vomitory and Obituary are the ones that lead the game with their death metal output. And what is so fun about it is that these bands are old as hell. I mean, they already started in the 80s, and let that sink for a bit. I mean, there's so many bands that cannot really do 20, 30 years making good music and all that stuff, let alone vanish and make a comeback and being stronger than ever. This really could be the Vomitory album. Don't get me wrong, I like the older material as well, but there's some blind spots for me as well, which I haven't heard, so maybe I'm not the right person to say that, but I just have the gut feeling that this might be the Vomitory album, especially compared to the early years when they did like a couple of albums in the 90s. And while they were strong, don't get me wrong, they are nothing compared to this one. But this band has quite a few albums, so maybe it takes a little bit time in comparing to really let that thing sink in. But like I said, this band acted from late 80s to 2013, and during those times they made actually all of their albums except this particular one. And when they made their real comeback around 2018, I mean, it took quite a few years to really come up with this album, and we're happy that they took their time and they didn't do it hastily. They didn't do like, okay, just scrap around something and let's get it done, but more like, okay, let's really do a little focused album and let's show that we're back in the game. What is also very important to notice that 3 of the guys are actually from the 90s or 80s, so really old school lineup. Even the newest member is as new as 2005, so you really can't say that these guys are just like, you know, hiring some new mercenaries and let's hope it just works. But it's old school lineup really, and it makes this, in my opinion, more fascinating. So now the question is, what is All Heads Are Gonna Roll like? What kind of a death metal album we're talking about? Now, first let's get the thing out of the way and say, yeah, it's not gonna please everybody. I know already a couple of people online, kind of online acquaintances, still liking into metal, that is, we're talking about Discord people and all that stuff, who said like, yeah, this is mediocrity, this doesn't really move them at all. So the point here is, even if you make a really good death metal album, like I think Vomitory is doing here, it's not gonna please everybody, it's not gonna serve everybody even within the genre. So whatever you do, whatever kind of genre we're talking about, there are always people like, yeah, it's not that good, it's gonna be it's a disappointment and all that stuff. So it goes without saying, doesn't matter what I think about it, you might like it or vice versa. But here with this 40 minutes, give or take, and 10 songs in, it's a fantastic album. And I don't know really where to start because there's so many good things to say about it, but let's start with the overall feeling. You know, it's made with kind of a classic death metal guitar riffs and being more on the fierce and aggressive fast tempo side. It's not gonna cater to the needs that are, yeah, I just need kind of a doom dead man, Obituary, and like that. You kind of need to have the thing for aggressive, fast tempo death metal to go with Vomitory. This is very much true with this one, even though it really has those mid-tempo parts as well. But overall, I would say this is more on the aggressive and violent side of things. Not exactly brutal death metal, but in a way, I guess, closer to Cannibal's Corpse school of death metal, closer to brutality and all that stuff, rather than those more, held back mid-tempo acts, which are more about, I guess, in the terms of atmosphere and just, going the kind of a Panzerwagen thing, slowly but heavily rolling fast forward. Now, Vomitory is like, let's put the fast to the fast. So if there's the tank rolling on relatively fast, like, yeah. But Vomitory is just like a, I don't know, bomber. It's gonna, or it's going to explode and shit like that. And then you have those heads rolling and the bodies are being dismembered and all that shit. Or maybe there's this crazy serial killer dude here, spiking the heads and, just having those limbs all over the place. So this kind of a Cannibal Corpse, kind of a feeling, not like super serious, but kind of a cartoonish take on it. But it doesn't remove anything from the music. It's more like, yeah, this is old school death metal. Yeah, maybe it's some kind of a murder, violent fantasy thing. But so what? That is death metal is all about. Not just some grim reality shit always. I mean, there are a bunch of bands doing that and fine. But maybe that's not the Vomitory style after all. The other good thing really here is how the vocals are done. I mean, they're super powerful and all that stuff. Maybe not original, but who wants originality in terms of death metal growly vocals? I mean, you want them deep and hard and heavy. Brutal, if you will, and that's what Vomitory is, dealing with. Also, the production. It's solid. Whatever you're talking about, drums or guitars or whatever, I mean, it's just heavy stuff, but without sounding overly produced, like, sometimes you really go nitpicking, saying like, okay, these drums sound violent, but they also sound like machine-made, kind of a machine-produced, like lack of dynamics and all that stuff. No, I don't get that feeling with Vomitory, which is definitely a big plus. So everything here is like finding its place and all that stuff. Now, if I got one minus thing, a minus very, very small con side of things to mention about the album, yes, it really could be more memorable. I'm talking about the stuff that, for example, bands like Death or, in a certain degree, Cannibal Corpse, and definitely bands like Vomitory did. They had these certain melodies which like kind of a drill into your brain. But then again, Vomitory is not that about melodies. Now, if you could go to the Cannibal Corpse point and say, yeah, they don't have their own Hammer Smashed Face song. So, in that respect, yes, the album could be better, but do I have real complaints? No, not a single one. So, the only one that, in my opinion, separates this kind of greatness from perfection is that maybe you could have that kind of catchiness or memorability. Doesn't matter how you color it, what kind of words you use. That's the only con side. And if you really consider that a big minus when you're out of help, then maybe Vomitory is not your cup of tea. So for me, rating this would be 8.5 out of 10. So definitely on the great side of things, but not exactly perfection if there is one in the first place. So definitely one of the best death metal albums this year. And definitely for those who like old school sound, mix it with realities of today, whether it's about production or, just making a good, really good comeback album and all that stuff. So let's re-welcome Vomitory once again back to the game and back to the cage. And I'm saying, get to see them live if you can, if you really love death metal. These guys don't fuck around, they do some really good, solid stuff. So, nice to have it. And, off you go. Listen, links provided in the description box. See you soon with more reviews coming your way. Bye bye.